right. Well, good evening, everyone. It is 7 p.m. your time, and so we're just going to dive right back in to where we left off. I'm going to start with a word of prayer, show a little video of the episode that I did on this particular one. We have a lot to cover, and so I'm going to try to see how much we can get through as we develop. So let's go ahead and pray and get started. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you, Lord, for the privilege of life. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to come together at this moment. We ask that you may abide with us now, give us wisdom. And we trust, Lord, that in developing this Christian entrepreneurial mindset, that we may find greater understanding in the projects and the dreams and the passions that we seek to pursue. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, let's see if it's up. All right, there we go. All right, here we go. Fourth principle.
Hi, this is Sebastian Braxton, and welcome back to our series on the entrepreneurial mindset. This is episode number 4. Now, I want to begin with a story where I read about Middle Eastern girls going to school for the first time in this particular country. Now, their male counterparts were not so excited about this development. They tried every particular thing they could to stop these girls from wanting to go to school. They tried to discourage them by throwing rocks at them as they walked. They tried to use chemicals to make them sick and ill, and they even threatened physical assault. Yet these girls were still motivated to go in spite of all of these apparent setbacks. What was it in them that motivated them to have that type of desire to learn? You know, in many ways, we don't have that same desire. I remember listening to a speech at a graduation, and the speaker said, if you graduate today and you stop reading tomorrow, you'll be an illiterate the next day. The truth is, we don't have that intrinsic desire to learn when we're not forced to in a school context. And that's probably because schools actually present learning in a way that is not compelling. We call it the achievement kill. When you do something because you love it, but once someone starts giving you compensation or a reward for it, all of a sudden it kills that intrinsic desire to do it. Now, what is the area in life where we are motivated to learn, that we can draw from to figure out how to get people to be curious, how to get them to learn, not because of a financial reward or something that they're going to gain when we're doing games? For example, when we're trying to master a particular sport like basketball or soccer, or maybe when we're playing a video game and we're trying to get to that next level, or maybe a board game and we're trying to figure out how to overcome the same mistakes that we make each and every time we play that particular game. Our curiosity compels us to want to learn how to play better, but there's no check at the end of the week, but there's no degree when you finish and you get there. Well, entrepreneurs have figured out how to take that same energy that we use to master games like sports and board games and video games and bring that back into their daily life and their work. And that is their compelling goal. Uncle Cleve would often tell his nephew Clifton, he would say, you need to mix them up, hard work and book learning. Now, he wasn't just talking about school, he was also talking about observation and listening. Cleve used to actually observe a businessman local in town who was a Jewish man named Milton. He actually inherited his business from his father. And Cleve would notice that Milton treated every single person with respect, whether they were black or white, wealthy or poor, and he adopted that same mindset into his business. And he would often say, folks ain't gonna fault you if you treat folks right. Well, he was right. And it's actually totally improved his business. Now, when we look at this, the results are we come out of a fixed mindset, thinking that certain things are impossible for us to do, when we focus on the fact that there's nothing that we cannot learn to do. Now, the last point I really want to bring out in this particular dimension of the entrepreneurial mindset is the fact that you and I have to focus on learning out of curiosity. Think about the things that you're curious about in yourself, in the world, in the problems that you're trying to solve. Just explore, ask questions, seek those answers, and see what comes out of it. One of the most recent popular services right now is a service called Blinklist. It's basically proposing that the average CEO reads 5 books a month. Now, most people are like, I don't have time to read 5 books every single month. So what they propose to do is summarize those books into 15-minute bites, get the main concepts, and be able to move forward from there. What is it that they're trying to communicate? is that readers are leaders and that learners are world turners. And if we make that same commitment to be a lifelong pursuer of knowledge, we can also be a world turner as well.
Now, as we kind of dive into this particular principle of the entrepreneurial mindset, I kind of want to start off with this fundamental question. And that question is, why are entrepreneurs so motivated to learn? That's the core question as to how this even comes up. So, sorry about that interruption. So when we think about this idea, I want to ask you guys, when you think about the idea of what is it that you feel keeps people motivated as entrepreneurs to actually want to learn? Why do you guys think that entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial type people are so motivated to learn? What do you think is it that drives them? It's okay, you can unmute yourself or chat if you're a little bit more shy. So why do you guys think that is? It's okay, I can wait. I don't mind. This is a seminar, not a sermon, so I'm not just gonna preach. So someone says it's difficult to answer, right? Why are they motivated to learn? So what makes that question difficult to answer?
I think there's a kind of curiosity about always wanting to know what the newest thing is or what might be a current trend. So it's kind of thirst for knowledge to be at the front of things.
Yeah, that's exactly right? That's a big part of it is their curiosity, right? To see what's out there, to see what's possible. Any other ideas?
I think a drive to do things better, a belief that they can do things better.
Yes. That's another great example. Anyone else? What do you think motivates entrepreneurs to learn?
I think those who are motivated or who want to learn, they are entrepreneurials.
Mm-hmm.
The way around.
So you feel like people are motivated to learn typically are entrepreneurial, right? Or an entrepreneur. So you feel like the curiosity of learning leads them that way. Okay. I see Josue said to find better ways to accomplish things in an effective manner. Okay, they want to know what other people think, right, about what they're doing. So they're seeking advice or input. Okay, these are good. Any other ideas?
They're not satisfied with the status quo. They always want to search for something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't stay with like, okay, this is how it's always been, so I'm going to do it like that because it's always been like that. They're like, no, how can we do this new? Or how can we, they're just, I guess, yeah, curious about new ways or new methods to do things, or yeah.
Okay. So
I think it depends on the people. I think there's a lot of different people. I think there are some that are motivated by money, and others that don't care about the money but do care about the game. And so I think it depends.
So you feel, Tom, that some people are motivated to learn because of money?
Yeah, for sure. It might not be always the case, but I believe there's some people that want to learn something specific to make a business and to make a living. And I met a guy that he was very good at some point specifically, and he said, I don't care about the money, I just want to be active, and I really love to make other people earn money.
Interesting. So I want you guys to think about all the major successful business people that you know in the world. How many of them do you think were in it for money?
I think very few of them. I think they were, like you said, were in love with the problems and trying to provide a solution to those problems. And then as a result of that, they become successful. Money followed them, but I don't think they were in it for the money.
I want you to think about a statement from the CEOs and founders of Twitter. They said, you know, people told them, they said during the Arab Spring, when there was a lot of revolts against these Arab governments in Northern Africa and the Middle East, and they said that Twitter had a big part of that because they were tweeting different experiences and what the government was doing and how they were treating the public. And so they said Twitter just exploded. But the guy who was the founder of Twitter, he said, well, yeah, if you work hard at it for 10 years, you'll be an overnight success, because they had started Twitter 10 years before that ever happened. So it lets you know that if you build something and it takes 10 years to be successful, if your motivation is money, do you think you would stick with something for 10 years? Do you think money is a big enough motivator to have you and your wife and your kids living in, you know, subpar conditions, deal with your family every Christmas? Why are you doing this, right? Why are you doing, is money really going to motivate you through 10 Christmases, 10 birthdays of telling your son you can't afford gifts, or we're still living in the same small place? What do you guys think? I see Daphne and Lulu said no.
I think for some at the beginning, money can be a motivator, but in the long run, I think the perception might change.
Agreed, right? And that's a very good point, Josue, is that you may end up in a situation where you started off motivated by money, but then you come to what we call a watershed or a come to Jesus moment, where you ask yourself, listen, do I really want to do this? Because I could get a job and make more money than I'm making right now. And so this question of learning and constantly learning and exploring, those are the things that we are passionate about, the things that we're curious about, the things that we're interested in. If you're not interested in it, you're just interested in money, then why not go into the financial sector? Why not become a banker? Why not become an investment manager? You'll read and learn about money all the time. So a lot of times when people say that individuals start a business because they're motivated by money, I oftentimes tell them, well, keep in mind that they've bought into the idea that they can make money very quickly. So they think, oh, if I quickly start this business, like everybody's doing eyelashes right now. All these women are starting their own business, doing eyelashes and sewing on these eyelashes to women's eyes. And what helps individuals, you know, continue forward in these businesses is that they're actually making money. But if you're not getting any feedback, you're not making any sales, you're eventually going to shut down that business, because you're not in it for the problem. You're in it for the money. And if the money is not coming, you're going to get out of the business. So a big part of the entrepreneurial mindset in terms of these three habits of recognizing opportunities, and then after recognizing those opportunities, taking action, right? Running these small little mini experiments to learn about your market, to learn about your business, and then learning, constantly taking that knowledge and going back and looking at the opportunities. That's a constant cycle of what an entrepreneur and a person that has that mindset goes through. Now, when we think about this as a Christian and this idea of knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge, in the answer of describing an issue or a problem. So we will look at the fact that salvation rests upon knowing. So that Jesus said, this is life eternal, that they might know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. He says that is salvation. That is eternal life. So in this sense, right, it is in our relationship with God, because God is infinite and we were designed for relationship with him. There is a constant curiosity and unfolding of who God is for the rest of eternity. So this passion for learning, based in the context of love and of service and of intimacy, is what compels even the Christian. But so many people, they turn their devotions and their prayer life into, and in just their spirituality in general, into a checklist. I did my devotions today. I read my Bible for 20 minutes today, as if they were just like a husband and a wife that were living together. And he takes out the trash and he pays the bills and he shows up for dinner and, you know, he does all the things, right? He checks them off the list. And that's it, right? He's never going above and beyond. And so we can easily adopt the mindset, what's the least I can do and still be in a relationship with you? And we take that mindset to God and we carry that mindset into our pursuit of business. You see, if you are passionate about a problem, you're not asking what's the least we can do, because you are passionate about the problem. So the guy who started Clean Water International, he's not looking and saying, what's the least I can do for these 80% of the world that doesn't have access to clean water? He's not content that they dug 2 wells in a year and only gave 10,000 people access to clean water. He's not saying, hey, we dug 2 wells, you know, great, we're good, right? He's not sitting back and saying, I'm collecting my salary. When you are passionate about the problem you are trying to solve, that constant pursuit of knowledge and learning, because of this compelling goal that you have, continues to move you onward, no matter the situation. It doesn't matter how much success. In a lot of ways, we as entrepreneurs are unable to celebrate successes along the way. Because for us, if it's not the end goal, I'm not satisfied. So people will look at me and say, Sebastian, you started this business and in 6 months, right, you grew your revenue up to $7,000 a month. I mean, that's $84,000 a year. Most people don't make that much money from a degree. And they would say, man, Sebastian, look at your business. Look how fast this thing grew. And I would look at it and I'm like, we're just scratching the surface. I haven't even come close to achieving my goal. And therefore, the fact that my revenue is at this point is irrelevant to me, except for the fact, and we'll talk about this in the next principle on wealth and money, that it's helping me move towards the goal of solving this problem. So when you think about it, that curiosity and passion and interest, some of us have lost that from when we were young. We've lost the concept of wonder. We've lost the concept of curiosity, just pursuing things for their own sake and being willing to do that. So I want to share a video with you. Some of you guys have probably seen this video, but I want to share it for those who may not have seen it. And it's basically called Kane's Arcade. And it really encapsulates this whole concept.
I'm 9 years old. My arcade is called Kane's Arcade. It's open on weekends only, and it's really cheap.
Kane does not pass by an arcade without stopping in. He loves tickets, playing games. He loves prizes. So it was only natural for him to build his own arcade. He loves to see how things are built. He takes all his toys apart to see how they work. He can't put them back together, but he takes them apart. Kane spent summer vacation coming to work with me. We sell auto parts in East LA.
My dad has a lot of boxes back there to ship parts out, so I cut them up and make my arcade games out of it. My first game I made, the basketball hoop I got at Shakey's Pizza, and it's really cool.
He taped it onto a box, and he was offering people chances to play for like a nickel. He started from that little game, and little by little they started getting fancier and fancier, and eventually he took over the whole store.
I met Kane randomly. I had to get a door handle for my '96 Corolla, so I pulled into this used auto parts store, and I just came across this elaborate cardboard arcade. I asked him how much it was to play. He's like, for $1 you get 4 turns, but for $2 you get a fun pass. Like, well, how many turns do you get a fun pass? You get 500 turns for a fun pass. I got a fun pass.
I made this fun pass that expires in 1 month, and you get 500 plays on any of these games. It's a great deal. Then I started making my office. It has like a speaker on the other side I could talk through. I got tokens, my business card, fun passes, and prizes. First prizes, I used my own toys, like the cars with my own toys. I used to like Hot Wheels when I was little.
I worked from the back office, and it kept them out of my hair all summer. He would work on the arcade, I'd work on eBay.
My next game I built was a soccer game. First of all, it didn't have no goalies. People said it was too easy, so I bought army goalies, and those are my blockers. I thought, is it easy now? It's pretty hard, so you get 2 tickets if you make it in here. I'll give it a 4-star, hard game, challenging game. 4-star.
One day, Kane tells me, Dad, I want to buy a claw machine. I said, why don't you just build it? So he got an S-hook, put a piece of yarn on it, and then put a little track on top of the box.
So when you go here, you have to turn it on, you put a pin number in it, and you push a check mark button, and the big number comes out. That's how you know it's a real fun pass.
My dad started the business in 1955. We have used auto parts. Most of our business has gone online because we really don't get to walk up traffic like we used to. So Kane's chance of getting one customer is pretty hard. Kane's always waiting in front, sitting on his little chair, and trying to convince people to play, but not too much luck.
Kane's Arcade grand opening.
But he never gets discouraged. He's always sweeping up and dusting off the games, waiting for customers. He only wears a shirt on Saturdays and Sundays when he comes to open up his arcade. And he's really proud of his shirt because he thought it up and he designed it. When Kane got back to school from vacation, he started telling everybody that he had an arcade. And nobody believed him. So he won't wear his shirt to school because he's afraid the kids might tease him about it. You know, he told them, hey, I got my own arcade. And they're going, yeah, sure. Well, one day, my secretary comes running into the office. George, you never believe it. Somebody's playing Kane's Arcade. And I go, no way. So I was looking through the security camera, watching them.
And I'm playing like miniature soccer, miniature basketball. And then when you'd score a point, he would crawl into the box and he pulls out these little tickets out of the side of the cardboard.
Like real arcade games, tickets come from the bottom.
And I was like, this kid's a genius.
Nirvan came back one day when Kane wasn't here, and he told me, do you mind if I make a short film about Kane's Arcade? I said, well, actually, it's kind of like a little joke around here, because you're his only customer.
I was blown away. Kane's only sold 1 Fun Pass. Like, the Fun Pass is an awesome deal.
So Nirvan said, well, what if I can get him a couple customers? And I said, that would make his day. If you can get him 1 customer, he'll be happy.
And at that point, we hatched a plan to invite everybody in LA to come play Kane's Arcade. The idea was to do a surprise flash mob at Kane's Arcade on Sunday afternoon.
And I'm thinking, who's gonna come down to a junkyard Sunday afternoon, East LA? Who's really gonna show up?
Then I made a little Facebook event, which a friend posted on Hidden LA, which has over 230,000 fans. And all of a sudden, it just started going viral.
Nirvan put it over the internet. And all of a sudden, within an hour, we had NBC News here.
Then I hit the front page of Reddit, which is like being on the front page of the internet.
I started reading the comments. I wish I could be there. I live in New York. I wish I could be there. I live in Europe. And I go, wow, it was getting big. The plan is, I'm gonna take Kane to Shakey's Pizza. We're gonna play some arcade games. We're gonna eat lunch while Nirvan sets up a big surprise party. Kane has no idea what we're doing. And when we get back, he's had the biggest surprise of his life.
And the idea is just to get as many people as we can and to come out to Kane's Arcade and just make his day.
Kane's dying to have one customer show up to his arcade. So Kane is to be the most surprised little boy in the whole wide world.
Hey, we're ready. In about a minute, he's gonna arrive here.
Hey Kane, can we go home early today? We had no customers today.
No.
No? Come on, your dad's tired.
No can do.
No can do. We're back, Kane. Wow. What's going on over here? Huh? We finally got some customers here.
Okay.
All right, everybody, this is Kane. Kane, this is everybody. All these people came here to play your arcade. Did you know they were coming?
No.
Are you ready to run your arcade?
Yeah.
All right, what'd you guys come here to do?
We came to play!
Go ahead, welcome to Kane's Arcade, man.
Well, the C could be for cardboard and the A could be for arcade. But the A could also be for auto parts, cause it's pop shops where it's made. And the I's gotta be for imagination, of which the kid's got a lot. And the N ought to be for noggin, where the idea first got thought. But then the E. Oh yes, the E. Oh yes, the E. Oh yes, the E. Well, the E's gotta be for everybody. That's you and me. Cause everybody's who's invited to come on down and play. If you got the pluck to try your luck, come on down to Kane's Arcade. Oh, Kane's Arcade. Kane's Arcade. Oh, Kane's Arcade. Kane's Arcade. It's the best cardboard arcade ever been made. Ever made. Grab yourself a fun pass and y'all come on down and play. If you got the pluck to try your luck, get on down to Kane's Arcade.
So as I share this video, and this is one of the things that I wanted to save this video for the end because it summarizes so many of the principles that we were talking about. And to show that one of the arguments that I'm trying to push with this entrepreneurial mindset is that you can start even from a very young age. And to realize that there he was, right, using boxes, using what he had, right? And you would think, oh, starting your own arcade, like, where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to get the resources? And we talked about that in our last seminar on Tuesday. Well, how do you take action, right? And what if you don't have the money? Well, Kane didn't have the money, right? He said, hey, let's get a claw machine. He's like, why don't you just build one, right? So he gets a box and draws a little line, has the hook and the yarn, and he created his own little claw machine. And in this very moment, he's figuring out, how do I get the tickets to come out the box? How do I sell the fun passes? How do we make sure this thing is legitimate, right? With the square root of whatever number. I mean, it's crazy, right? And so you're just thinking to yourself, like, here's this kid, 8 years old, right? And he's building this entire arcade. And this is why so many people came out to support it when they saw it online. Because they said, man, here's a kid who's not playing video games. He's not cropped up in the house, wasting his time and his life away, but he actually built something. He designed something, right? He was passionate about it. And using the fact of knowledge and his curiosity, how can I make this, right? And that you would never see Kane like in school be like, okay, guys, here's your project. You need to create an arcade. And people be like, oh, fine, we have to make an arcade. It's a part of our school project. But here are multiple school projects of his own volition, of his own motivation. And when you think about the things that he's learning about collecting money and fun pass and business and understanding customers, he has a t-shirt. He understands uniforms like, oh yeah, we need a staff and Kane's Arcade t-shirts. And you're thinking to yourself like, what? Like, and in this particular video, And the thing that just warms my heart every time I watch this video, I mean, I've seen it like dozens of times, but every time I watch it, it gets me the same way when he's driving in the car back from Shakey's Pizza and he doesn't know all the people are waiting for him. It gets me every single time. And I'm just like, man, that's why I had to turn off my video, because I was like, you know, they're going to see my face. So I'm going to be getting like a little tear in my eye. And I'm just like, man, this is awesome. Like, it just makes you feel like, at least for that moment, something is right in the world, right? It's nice to get some good news and to see society reacting this way to a young boy who built a cardboard arcade. Well, the reality is the same spirit that led those people to respond to Cain's arcade is the same spirit that responds to so many people when they act out of a pursuit of a passionate problem that they have. They say, listen, I don't have all the resources, but this is what I could do with what I have. And the fact that he's persistent, right? He doesn't want to go home, no customers for today, yada. He's like, we can't go home. We still got to go back, see if we can get some customers to come play the arcade. Now, you think about this idea that what is the arcade for you is the question. What is the thing that you're trying to build and that you're passionate about building? Because you want to see, for Cain, he wanted to see people having fun playing these arcade games because he loves it. In the same sense, for your business, there's something that you want to provide for your customer. There's a product, there's a service, right? There's a benefit, there's the relief of a specific pain or frustration. That has to be the thing that wakes you up in the morning, right? That keeps you up at night, that makes you passionate about what you're trying to design and to build out. This is really critical to understanding this Christian entrepreneurial mindset, because when you look at Christ and his desire to reveal the Father, right, as we talked about in the previous seminar, that he came down with a desire to solve our sin problem, which ultimately resulted in the vindication of the name of God, which was at the very heart of the great controversy. Through the pursuit of a problem for other people and to solve that problem for them in a way that is compelling and that is innovative, we end up empowering ourselves to some things that are most dear, near and dear to our hearts, which may be providing for our families, which may be, you know, being able to afford to put our kids in an Adventist school or be able to support my mom in her old age, whatever the case may be. Those compelling goals and those reasons that move you, but that compelling goal, combining that to say, what if I went out to solve problems for other people? And that is the very heart of the Christian message, right? Is that Ellen White says the purpose of true education is to prepare us for service. She says that is the object of life. That is the purpose of life, is the joy of service. But for most of us, we've lost the joy of service, and that's why education and learning, which is supposedly supposed to prepare us for service, ends up becoming a drudgery. Because we're saying, why am I studying math? Why am I understanding geography? Why am I diving into social studies and calculus? Why are we understanding physics? How is this preparing me for service? Has been a complaint for so long, for so many years, of so many young people who've gone through a lot of formal education. It's like, how is this preparing me to serve? And understanding practical learning that comes in response to action, to engagement in the world, and to seeing a problem, that passion, that empathy, that learning develops so much more of the human being than just sitting in a classroom following the PowerPoints and memorizing the information. So I want to kind of get you guys' reaction. What are some of your reactions to seeing that video, you know, in the light of what we're talking about with this entrepreneurial mindset? Ellen just gives me the thumbs up. She's like, yep. So yes, give me your reactions.
Business can be fun.
You said what?
Business can be fun.
It should be, right?
Yeah.
Should be. Okay, anyone else? Well, I should say someone else.
I think like just the importance of being patient and that believing that someone will believe in what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That builds up one of the things we're going to talk about in persistence. Yep. Go ahead, Tom.
and how he didn't care if he would fail. Failure was not in his mindset. It was not an equation at all.
That's right. Right. We call that a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And that's what we call grit, right? Which would be the 8th component of the Christian entrepreneurial mindset, which is persistence, perseverance. Very, very important. Someone else, give me your reaction.
I'm just wondering if there will come more customers, or if there have been more customers after this whole crowd left.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's definitely, I think there's a 2nd and 3rd video on King about some of the things that have happened afterwards.
Because it made me wonder, for me, it's kind of strange that that he needed some big organization to get customers.
What do you mean, a big organization?
Yeah, this adult man who came and he gathered this whole crowd, and without it wouldn't have started.
Well, you mean he already started it, right? So it wouldn't have been noticed. But basically what Nirvan was trying to do, he just posted on Facebook and said, hey, I just want to get a few of my friends to come. And then they were so moved by it, right, that they shared it, and then it got shared into a group, right? And then it just picked up. So it still would have been, equally as powerful and successful. He would have filmed it regardless if 10, 20 people showed up, because he just wanted to say, hey, I think what he's doing is really cool. And his dad's like, hey, bring him some customers. That's all he wants. And it goes to show you that his desire wasn't for East LA to show up, right? His desire was not for thousands of people. He just wanted a few customers, and he would have been satisfied with that. And a lot of times that tells us, when we are building out our projects or ministries or businesses, we have to be very clear on what we would be satisfied with. And in a weird way, it's like other people say, well, why don't you do this? Or you can make more money doing that. But that's not what's going to satisfy me. That's not solving the problem. And for Kane, he just wanted customers, right? He just wanted some people to come in and play his arcade. And you can see that his hard work and his willingness, right? I see someone send me a message, his honest desire was demonstrated in his actions. So you could see that he wasn't trying to go into this to make money, right? Even though it cost you, 25 cents and $2 for a limited, fun pass, whatever. But in his mind, it was just like, hey, this is how arcades work. This is, how things are. And I just got to figure out how to make this thing work so that, you make arcades, you get tickets, you have prizes, right? Things you can trade your tickets for. I mean, he had the whole thing set up.
It's very inspiring, especially as you see that he is so moved to he's like, oh, let's get the next game. Okay, how do we do? Okay, so what can I do and then he's just so inspired just to build this, and then he just wants to show it. It's like he made a little present and he wants to show everybody.
Yes. And
like you said also, it's not about the money, it's about sharing what he has created for other people to enjoy. So it's actually he wants to be of service to others with something that he knows that he can create or can do. So it's very inspiring.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Daphne.
And one thing that caught my attention is that made me think is he inspired others. So the success of his business was that he actually inspired others. So it made me think that if we are to pursue a business, one goal should be to inspire others somehow, not to get the money, but to inspire others for good. That is our mission.
Yeah, it's true. Someone else, give me your reactions to that.
I think the part of his success was his supporting father.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who was fueling his imagination, and he felt very secure beside him.
Right. So I want you to think about, right, some of the things that we've talked about, right? The power to choose. We talked about, recognizing, opportunities. We talked about action, Now we're talking about knowledge, and you guys are already bringing out several other things. So I want to mention some of those, right? We talked about his perseverance, and the fact that he stayed going even though he wasn't seeing a lot of customers. And perseverance is very important. And I'm going to talk about a little bit in a little while, like when to quit, right? How do we know when to quit? Because sometimes you may say, well, Sebastian, you know, if you just persevere and persevere, like, what if this is God telling you, right, he doesn't want you to do this? I know that question is going to come up in someone's mind. So it's like, well, you know, and what if you feel convicted that God led you to this, but it's not succeeding? But it's financial distress, right? It's distressing a lot of other people. So perseverance is also a component that we see there. Another component you just mentioned, right, his father, is the sense of community, right? Needing the support of others. Needing the support of others. I'm going to talk about that towards the end when I talk a little bit about what I'm doing with the $1 Million Club. Then you also look at the concept of brand. And I want to talk about brand a little bit in terms of the entrepreneurial mindset. So when we think about the concept of a brand, actually, let me just mention money in here while I'm here to talk about wealth. So when we talk about the concept of a brand, what normally comes to your mind when you think of the concept of a brand?
An image of a company and what it stands for.
Right, logo, image, right? Anything else? Identity. Okay. Anyone else? When you think of a brand, what comes to your mind? Like a little motto. Quality. Someone said unity. Good. Any other ideas when you think of a brand? So I want to take this first point to say, your brand is essentially your reputation, right? That's the reputation of your business. How does a person get the reputation that they have? They usually get that reputation in two basic ways. And I'm gonna write these over here to the side, right? So you usually get it by your words and usually get it by your actions. But you know, we have a famous saying about words and actions. You guys can think of the saying that I'm thinking of? About words and actions.
Actions speak louder than words.
That's exactly right. Actions speak louder than words. So they both speak and they both affect your reputation. But what affects your reputation more than what you say in your logo, in your identity, in your slogan, right? In your marketing, the emotional impression, right? The quality that you're telling people, above what you're saying, because this is when we think about a brand, we focus on what we are saying, but your brand is about what you are doing. And the fundamental question of your brand is, what is it that I can reliably do? What is it that I can reliably do? That's how you build your brand, is by being reliable. So if it's every single time you go into an Apple store, you know that it's going to be well designed. And Apple has always prided itself, we will always reliably provide a quality design. That's their brand, right? That's exactly what every single Apple product, every single Apple software, anything that you see is going to be designed well. So because of that, that becomes a part of their brand. But when you think about a completely different company, like for example, Netflix, Netflix's brand is not about the design. Netflix's brand is we will always have content. We will always be having new content. When you think about a lower level company, let's say, like Gmail or Google. So again, you have the fact that what can you reliably expect from this particular organization? And answering that question is how you build your brand. So let's just say you're building, let's just say you're building a mission school, okay? Or you're building a wellness coaching company, okay? Or you're building a ministry. So I'm gonna start with these. So when we look at this, right, in your mission school, the question is, what's the reliability? When people go through the mission school, what will you reliably be able to provide to every single person, no matter how long the school has been in existence? And so many times we don't think about this, right? We think about, well, we're going to provide, you're going to know, all the doctrines, right? You're going to know how to defend your faith, or you're going to know whatever. But can you actually reliably provide that is the question. So for example, people will create a school such as a mission school, and then they'll say, oh yeah, you can make sure that you'll be able to defend your faith, but that rests upon an instructor in the program that may not stay in the program, or that may not be able to teach one particular cohort of the mission school. And then in that moment, what you used to reliably provide, people say, well, this is why I came here. And you'll hear a lot of people say they go to mission schools because their spiritual life was suffering. So they're really going there not to learn the doctrines, they're going there for spiritual revival. They're going there to be in an environment around a place where you don't have to worry about the doctrines, you don't have to worry about the teachings, you don't have to worry about, whether people are going to push you and encourage you towards evangelism. So because they're in this environment, they feel this is spiritually uplifting to them. So this is, again, what they say, this is what the school can reliably provide. But if you don't understand what you can reliably provide, that's going to be consistent, always there, always present, every single day, every single time they come in contact with your organization, then what's going to end up resulting is people are going to say, yeah, that's what they say, but that's not what they do. And that's how you damage your reputation. You overpromise and you underdeliver. So immediately it's like, I got a logo, I got a brand, I got a website, and we're saying all these great things, right? We even got testimonies, right, of people who've been through our school. And this is where we have to be careful, right? We call this propaganda. And in propaganda, we only highlight the positive things and we leave out all the negative and the other things. But if we want to be true to what it means to build a proper reputation, it's about consistency of experience. Every single time, this is what you're going to get. It's almost like a computer. Every time I press the K button, I'll get the letter K. Every time I hit the power button, it will turn on. Based on that reliability, that's how you're going to evaluate and be judged. Now let's take a wellness coaching business, right? So it's kind of like a business, but it's kind of like a ministry. I think this is probably one of the most common things that recently have come to my desk about people interested in starting a business, right? Something with the health message. And I am, first of all, very excited and delighted to know that a lot of people are really trying to push the health message. It is the right arm of the gospel. And it is very central to Jesus's ministry. He prioritized the healing of the body as integral to his ministry and service. And we know that everything that he did was led by God. So it was God's will that Jesus' ministry was very, very focused in healing. But at the same time, when we're going into an element of building a business, we forget about this issue of reliability. So when you come in and you say, okay, oh yeah, wellness coaching, and you start saying you could reverse diabetes and you can do this and you can do that. Well, can you reliably do that? And this is what happens. We say, well, we have, Russian steam baths, and we have compresses, and we have juicing, and we have all, hot and cold treatments, and hydrotherapy, and we can do all of these treatments. But my question is, what does it reliably provide? You see, one of the reasons why our health message is failing to the pharmaceutical industry, and there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the biggest reasons why is that the pharmaceutical companies always focusing on what they can reliably do. And they don't hide all the negative side effects, right? And the fact that these drugs sell is beyond my comprehension. You watch a pharmaceutical commercial and it's like, oh yeah, please take, Zenefet. Zenefet deals with shaking leg syndrome. So if my leg is shaking, right, I can take this medication and help control my shaking leg syndrome. May cause blindness. Well, I'm like, I would be okay with a shaking leg if I don't lose my sight. May cause dizziness, upset stomach, breakouts on your skin, allergic reaction. Please call a doctor immediately if you feel any pains in your chest or you begin vomiting and you're like, wait a minute, this thing is for shaking leg syndrome. So let me think what's worse, my shaking leg or vomiting, potential death, allergic reaction, blindness. I mean, it's mind-boggling, but they don't even hide the fact. But they look at the fact and say, hey, listen, but here's the one thing we can guarantee you. If it works, this is what it's going to do. So when we step into the wellness space, we have to be very, very clear on what we can reliably provide. So we come in and we say, I do wellness coaching. Okay, what is your reliability? Is the reliability is that you will always be there? Or is the reliability that you will always provide a natural, organic, environmentally safe solution? So now the person says, okay, I want to pursue my health in a way that is safe for the environment. Well, that becomes your reliability. But if your reliability is, I can help reverse your type 2 diabetes, I mean, what happens if their diabetes is not reversed? Because, I mean, a lot of these lifestyle diseases, there's a lot of factors involved. There's a lot of conditions in their body, right? They not only have diabetes, they also have high blood pressure. They also have obesity. They also have pain in their joints. So they can't exercise to really benefit from exercise in reversing diabetes. So now you got to solve the joint problem and the pain problem and the issue in the back. And then they also are busy working because they're a single parent. So they can't really find the time to exercise or to eat healthy. So in looking at this, you have to focus in on what you can reliably do and do it consistently. And by doing that consistently, you begin to build your brand. Now, let me talk about the last one is just like a general ministry, right? Let's say we're trying to build a ministry for teens who are dealing with drugs, or we're trying to build a ministry for, let's say we're trying to serve young single Christians, or maybe we're trying to serve students on secular campuses. Whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, what is my reliability? You see, we knew in the Gospels to talk about brand. We see time and time again, the Bible says the fame of Christ went all around. And what was the fame going around? He can heal. He can recover your dead son. He can recover your servant. He can recover your mom. It doesn't matter if you've been by the pool of Bethesda 8 years. It doesn't matter if you were dead in a tomb for 4 days. It doesn't matter if you're a Gentile or a Jew. It doesn't matter. Jesus can actually heal and is willing. You could be a leper. He could recover you from leprosy. So the woman with the issue of blood, she came to him because of his reputation, because of his brand. And Christ is saying, listen, all I'm asking you to do is give faith in me and I will reliably provide healing to you. This is why the fame of Christ grew so much, because it was reliable. He was consistent in what he provided. So when you look at the same concept and we see in the life of Christ, his fame, his recognition, his popularity grew. Now, we also know that people are going to become selfish about it, right? They're going to be like, well, I want to come and get healing, or they only follow him because they ate the bread, right? We read that in John 6, because he feeds the 5,000, people start coming because they're like, hey, he can feed people. So we're going to come. And we see in John 2 that it says he didn't commit himself unto them because he knew what was in man. He knew that they were only there because of the miracles. Those are obviously not what we would consider, right, your loyal customers. And I'm not trying to commodify or businessify, if that's a word, the Gospels and what Jesus was doing. He wasn't creating a business. So I don't want to commodify it in that way, but it does teach us a bit of biblical principle. of how we build an organization, whether it's designed for profit or not. And in, Jesus' case, that was not the design, that was not the intention. But we see that there was reliability in what he was providing. So if you're going to build a school, a wellness coaching, a ministry, whatever it is, you have to focus on the reliability of what you're doing. And that is how you focus on your brand. What are you going to consistently provide? Now, before I open it up for questions, I want to talk a little bit about community and when to quit. So when we think about this Christian entrepreneurial mindset, we know that when it comes to the concept of community, we have a lot of different, texts in the Bible, right? They tell us things like, for example, there's wisdom in the multitude of counselors. We always see in Acts chapter 2, right, that they were gathering together house to house. Community was very, very important. But I want to focus on community from this perspective, because community is for sure intrinsic to the Christian life. And let me just explain one of these things, right? When you go to the book Steps to Christ, right, there's the quote that says, "He who only prays will eventually cease to pray." Ooh, sorry. Why do you think that's true? It's okay. I'll wait for an answer. Why do you think that's true? He who only prays will eventually cease to pray. Those are not my words. That's the spirit of prophecy.
It says pray and work.
Okay, we said pray and work. Okay.
I would say that he that only prays do not see any result. And for a person to be motivated, he needs to see results. And if he doesn't see results, he will ask, why am I even praying?
Yes, so that's a big point, right? So pray and work, he doesn't see results. Anyone else? Why is that statement true? He who only prays will eventually cease to pray. It says word leads to action. You'll have nobody or nothing to pray about. It's exactly right. You have no one or nothing to pray about. Because if you're always praying, right, and this is all you do, you'll never be connecting with people. And this is why the very next part of the statement, she says, not separating ourselves from the social circle. So when we deal with this idea of community, this is so intrinsic, right? If you as an entrepreneur, right, and you say, this is all you do is work on your business, work on your business, work on your business, eventually you will stop. Because if you're not coming in contact with customers, that's the first part of your community. So you have two different components that you have to manage. The first component is you need to manage your customers, right? You have to be coming in contact with customers. I talk to so many people, and I'm using the word customers loosely, right? This could be the missionaries, this could be the people in your ministry, this could be your patients, your clients, whatever it is. But just think of people who are benefiting from your service, the people who have the problem. They need to be a part of your community. People want to be a part of a community, and they don't want to just do business with you. They want to be a part of a community. They want to know that they're connected to other people who have a similar problem and therefore have similar interests. So that's the first part of the community that you have to build. But the second component is dealing with not just customers, but you also have other entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs, right, can really be broken up into two groups, right? So you have, one group that is, all right. Let me put this out this way. There we go. So the first group is going to be your peers, right? These are other people who are building ministries, building businesses, organizations. The second group are going to be people who are like mentors. And you need to have people who have gone before you, right? Because we say experience is the best teacher, but a fool learns by no other means. So when you're thinking about community, first of all, you got to think about, I need to be coming in contact with my customer and I need to build community with them. But then I also need to be connecting with other entrepreneurs. I need to connect with ones who are in the same part of the journey or maybe a few steps ahead of me. And I need to connect with those who have done it, right, to also invest in me. And this is a big reason of what one of my businesses is, which is Fiat Loops. And we have an online, I have an online Christian mentorship program, because what I noticed was there were business mentorship programs, there were other mentorship programs for different industries, gaming or industry or design or coding, whatever. They all have different mentorship platforms, but there was nothing for Christians. Because as a Christian, you don't want just a mentor who may be professionally sound, but they don't agree with your personal values. They don't agree with your worldview and your view of things. And so I started building it myself as a mentor, because eventually the goal is to build a platform so that other people can connect with other mentors in their same industries or professional fields, but also share their same worldview, right? They recognize we're not leaving eternity out of our consideration. But at the same token, I also just started creating this small community, going back to creating a community with your customers and your peers, et cetera, called the $1 Million Club, because I've had the benefit of receiving advice, receiving support and mentorship from people who have built multi-million-dollar businesses. And because of their input, because of their belief, because of their investment in me and the conversations that we've had, it's directly transformed my whole approach, because they weren't talking to me about a book. They weren't talking to me about, just academic information or just, oh yeah, take this idea, check. No, they were sharing with me from their actual experience of life of building a multi-million-dollar organization or ministry. And so my whole goal with the $1 Million Club is to connect people who are trying to build something with people who have already done it successfully, and continue to go through this entrepreneurial mindset, and to constantly help people to develop it by having their peers, connecting with people, who have built these multi-million-dollar organizations, whether for-profit or nonprofit, and then also being able to have a place to present their ideas of what they're building and get feedback from this community, right? This $1 Million Club. So they can say, well, here's my idea, guys, and this is what I'm trying to do. And as they present that, people are able to give them feedback and say, hey, you mentioned here that you're targeting this group. Why not target this group? Or maybe one of the people, who built the multi-million-dollar organization can provide you with context for how you could actually go about it based on the things that they know in the industry or the areas where they've worked before. So when you look at community, community is central to your success, not just in terms of building your company in terms of customers, but also connecting with other entrepreneurs, because it can be a very lonely road. And this is why we see Jesus sending out the disciples 2 by 2. This is why we see him, telling you guys should love one another even as I have loved you. This is why he encourages them to wash each other's feet, and why we constantly on a regular basis celebrate communion, which is where we are coming together to remember, right, the Lord's death until he comes. So in all of these rituals that are present inside of Christianity, they are directly infusing this whole concept of community. And we see this to an extreme degree in the Jewish community in the Old Testament and even to this day. So you have this concept that says, well, if I'm going to buy a car or I'm going to get my car fixed, I'm going to find a Jewish mechanic. That's their mindset, because I grew up in a Jewish community when I was from elementary school into high school. And that's literally how they think. They say, well, if I'm going to buy a car, let me find a guy who's Jewish who owns a dealership. If I'm going to go shopping, let me find somebody who owns or is a manager for this store. And this is their whole concept of support these people in the community. And through that particular building, they build each other up, right? They build up themselves as a community. But the goal is to do this beyond some sort of ethnocentric approach and build it around people who are trying to pursue these critical problems in the world and to solve them. And that's the whole concept of building that community. And that for me is, my small way of trying to address that problem with the $1 Million Club. But there are other organizations that are trying to solve the same problem and are doing, a really good job in what they're doing. But I want to mention this because it's not just enough to do this spiritual work internally, right? Such as we would say in the Christian life, praying, that mindset of, no, if I'm only doing this or I'm only studying the Bible, right, eventually you're going to stop. But you see, when you are studying the Bible and that comes in contact with someone, now all of a sudden, this idea that you just looked at has transformative power. And it re-energizes your own view of what you just studied. And it's the same in every single spiritual discipline, in every aspect of the experience. The social component, the community component, the engagement with others is central to your success. Now, my last words I want to talk about is when to quit. And I'm going to go ahead and just create a new page. So perseverance is really interesting. And the reason is because in the book, Ministry of Healing, there's a quote where she talks about, I think it's called the chapter on development. And in this, she talks about developing not just the passive virtues, but the active virtues. And perseverance is one of them, right? So she talks about different active virtues, right? So she says you got to develop, not patience and love and joy. These are what she calls passive virtues. But these active ones, she says, are force, which I found to be very interesting. So it's like, wow, force and perseverance is one. She also talks about the active grace of courage, was another one that she listed there. And that these active virtues is what leads us to be these individuals of power, right, of influence. But one of those things is perseverance. And so when you think of these active virtues, right, and this concept of perseverance, being able to endure to the end, right, in Matthew 24:13, or thinking about the statement about Jesus in Hebrews chapter 12, that looking unto Jesus, right, who is the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, right? He persevered, he endured it because of the joy that was set before him. So when we talk about this topic of perseverance, we first have to define very clearly for ourselves, number one, what is the joy that is set before me? This is important, right? What is the joy that is set before me? And by answering that question, I'm able to better grasp exactly, let me go back here. So by answering that question, I'm able to recognize this is my compelling goal. This is the joy that is set before me, right? This leads him to endure. Number two, we have to decide to endure from the beginning. Now, how do I say that? Because so many times, right, when people think about the entrepreneurial experience of building a ministry, building a business, right, in their mind, they're like, oh yeah, they think that the experience of building a business is a straight line, right? So for them, it's just point A to point B. That's it, it's just a straight line. But in actuality, the experience is much more like this, right? So you're kind of going all around and somehow you end up at your destination. So because we're thinking in this very linear fashion, where we're saying, oh yeah, this is just going to be a linear experience. But the truth is that's not what it is, right? And this requires endurance. This does not require endurance because you're like, hey, I'm just going straight. Every single step is moving me towards my goal. But the reality is it's much more like the bottom, right? It's this non-linear experience. And this non-linear experience is not something that we're used to in life, except when we're doing creative things, except when we're doing something that we're curious about or that we're interested in. Everything is not automatic progress. We come back and we say, man, I'm trying to fix up my dad's car. And you may see a little progress and you're like, yep, nope, we got to start this thing over. But because it's a hobby, because it's a personal project, because it's something that you're interested in, you just jump back in there. And even though it may seem, oh, we have some progress, but then we're kind of going to the left, then we're coming back right, then we go a little forward, then we kind of go around again, and then we kind of go up, and then we're back again, and then we go over, and we all of a sudden zip into progress. That's literally what it is like. It's not this straight line experience. So how do you know when to quit? And I want to use, there's a book by Seth Godin that I want to recommend to you. And it's called The Dip, right? It's a very short book, but it's a very important book for any person that is considering starting an enterprise, because his whole thing is how to know when to quit. And he does a great job encapsulating this idea of the fact that when you're going through a business, right, he describes it as, he says, you know, you kind of start off, and as you're going in your business, right, it starts off kind of like this whole experience. And then all of a sudden, right, you go through this sort of what he calls the dip, right? It's going down, and eventually it may come back up. And in this coming back up, right, all of a sudden you come back and now you're back to doing what you're doing. But here's the point of the dip, right, which is exactly what he's trying to point to, is he says during this period of time, okay, this is what we call the dip. So he says during this period of time, this is the absolute worst time to quit. So if you're going to quit, there's only two places you can really quit. The first is before the dip or after the dip. But you should not quit during. That's the worst time to quit. Because this is what happens. So you come in and you're building your business, right? And you're like starting your ministry, your organization, everything's going great, right? So we just say, yep, we're experiencing growth. And then all of a sudden during this area, we're losing, right? Everything is declining during this period. Now, what happens is he's like, a lot of people, this is where they choose to quit because they're like, things are going down, things are declining. But the reality is everything has shown us that every time there's a dip, it eventually comes back stronger than when you initially started. So because people are going through growth at this phase, he's like, decide that you're going to quit because eventually you're going to hit a dip. You have to know that. There's going to be a period of time where you're not recruiting as many people to your mission school. There's going to be a period of time when you're not getting as much funding, right, as you normally were getting before, and expanding and growing. Because a lot of people look at it and say, yeah, but I'm not experiencing this sort of straight line, straight up type of growth. Because this is not what it looks like, and this is what it looks like. I'm going through this decline. Well, clearly, you know, God's leading me another direction. Or clearly this ministry is not really working out. Or clearly this is not really the direction to go, when it's like you should have decided that here. But because you thought everything is just going to continually be growth, 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 your misconception is what misled you to think because there's a decline that you did something wrong, that you missed the detail. But the truth is, every single organization, for profit and nonprofit, goes through the dip. They start losing customers, the revenue goes down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you have to decide, I'm going to stay through the dip. If I'm going to quit, it's going to be before or after. When things are already coming back, we're already back on the growth, and we decide, you know what? I'm not going to be able to survive that dip, because for Twitter, it took 10 years, right? I want you to think about that. This dip for Twitter was 10 years. Can you wait 10 years? I want you to think about the fact that for, even ASI, right, to be accepted by the world church, that took many years of relationship building and work in order to get it to the place where they would allow it without any sort of resistance. Just like the way that many conference and union leaders feel about self-supporting ministries right now. And they say, oh, we can't trust these people. That's how they felt about ASI at one point in time. And because we don't know the history and we forget that, people just assume, oh, ASI has always been accepted by the church. No, it wasn't. It was not always viewed as a positive thing. But you see, they survived the dip. And now we see it as this is a staple, like there will always be ASI. I can imagine most people think there will be ASI until Jesus comes. It's like, well, there'll probably be ASI when the cloud appears and the earth is thrown out of its place, we'll probably be in the middle of an ASI convention and say, hey, you know what? Somewhere in the world, they're having their ASI meetings, and you know what? Jesus has come. It's time to end this because we don't, no more ASIs. But you have to survive the dip. And so when we're talking about perseverance, this element of recognizing, expecting, things are not always going to be incline positive growth. There's going to come a point where I'm going to go through the dip, and I have to decide ahead of time, no matter what, that I'm going to go ahead and go through this dip until it's over. But most people are not prepared for it, and that's why they quit at the wrong time. So if you're going to quit an enterprise, it's better to quit it in the beginning, or it's better to quit after you survive the dip and you experience that growth and resurgence of your market. I want you to think about the fact that there was a wave of veganism back in the 1960s and 70s with the hippies. Huge wave of veganism and plant-based and, you know, concern about the earth. And then we kind of went down again. There was a dip. 80s, 90s, people were not really talking about it. Even in the early 2000s, right? When I first became vegan, people were like, what do you eat? You go to restaurants and like the only food, they're like, oh, vegan? Yeah, we have tofu, uncooked. I'm like, raw tofu? Like, this is offensive. Like, no seasoning, no nothing, just raw tofu. And I remember back when you wanted non-dairy milk, it was a powder in a canister, right? You had to take 2 scoops and then mix it up. It was like the worst milk ever. So when you're thinking about the fact that there was a time when this was the attitude, and now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, everybody's talking to me like, oh yeah, Sebastian, he's been vegan for almost 20 years. Like, you should ask him. And now it's like, oh yeah, that's normal, right? You tell somebody you're vegan, they're like, oh, okay. They don't assume that you're Adventist. They don't assume that you're a Hindu. They're just like, oh, okay, you're vegan, cool. For your health, right? It's just better for you. Yeah. You know, vegan, I lost weight faster. You know, I just feel better eating more on the plant-based. And now we have plant-based, and then we have, you know, different type of plant-based versus, you know, people will eat processed, non-processed, GMO, non-GMO, et cetera, et cetera. So let me pause here because I know I have a few more minutes to end the seminar, but I see that I'm already starting to get a question. So I'm going to start opening it up for questions from you guys. So let me just stop sharing. So Daphne's asking the question, why is after the dip the right time to quit? Why would you quit after the dip? It's a good question, Daphne. So I think that to answer your question about why after the dip is the point is when if you quit during the dip, right? That's the only period of time when things are declining. And during that decline where everything is reducing what you normally were used to doing, if you quit during the dip, that's the time where it's like, no, you have to endure this, because when you come back to the other side, you're actually going to be in a very advantageous place. There were other social media platforms created when Twitter was first created, but Twitter survived the dip. Now, you ask the question, why is after the dip? Well, the point is, at that point in time, when there's continual growth and everything is very stable, you can say, we're going to go through another dip again. So eventually, even this success that we're enjoying now after the previous dip, we're going to go through another dip again. So because another dip is coming, I have to decide, am I willing to endure that particular dip? Or do I want to move on to something else? So the point is, the time to make the decision is not during a time of decline. It's always during a time of stability or growth. That's the time to make the decision to quit. If you quit during that time, you're literally wasting, you know, all of the effort you spent to get to that place to even be in the market in the first place. So the best time to process that is either before, decide ahead of time. Can we do this? Are we going to do this? Yes. Okay. Then you go afterwards. Someone says, give a list of essential books. Okay, that's a really good question. Let me share my screen. So let me give a list of books that I think are good. That's really small. blow this up. Essential books, I think Business Model Innovation, Business Model Generation. This is, I think his name is Eves. And basically this talks about the business model canvas, how to use it, how does it work. That's a very critical book because it shows you current business models that already exist. Another book would be the Customer Funded Business. And I believe the guy's from London, I think his name is John Mullins. It's been a while since I picked that book up, but I'm pretty sure that's another good, actually let me number these. It's a great book. Another one is the Startup Manual. I think Steve Case is the one, right? So he's dealing with, that one is a really good book because it deals with the lean startup and all of that concept, which is very, very important. Another book that I Myth Revisited. I'm trying to remember I think it's Michael Gerber is his name. Excellent book. This book really deals a lot with systems and defining exactly why you're in business and what you're seeking to do. I would recommend reading Counsels on Stewardship. It's a great book because it talks about a lot of principles of approach to money, approach to what she calls speculative gain, people getting caught up and thinking, oh, we could make this much money. She talks about the gold rush and the way that people made very poor decisions through that particular thing. The book Education is definitely another one. Another book I would recommend is, oh man, I can think of a lot of books that I feel like are essential. Yeah, I think these would be my essential starting list. When I think about talking to people about a Christian entrepreneurial mindset, I guess you could say another one would be Who Owns the Ice House by Gary, I think his name is Schoeniger. It's one of the business programs I facilitate. So yes, Alphonse Education from Ellen White. Gyozo, you said marketing management book. What do you mean? A book on marketing? Well, I mean, I think business model generation deals with it. E-Myth does deal with marketing. I guess if I could choose a good book that would be helpful on marketing, I would say Made to Stick by man, what is this? Two brothers. Let me just bring it up here. Made to Stick. Yes, by Chip and Dan Heath. Yep, Chip Heath. It's a good book for strategic communication. The book Ask. He has a book called Ask, which is a pretty good marketing book. I don't really, I'm spending a lot of time reading marketing books because I find that once I, oh yeah, I think it's Steve Blank. Thank you. I think that's right. Steve Blank, not Steve Case. So I'm going to change this. Thank you. So I think that when it comes to marketing, I feel like you should be learning a lot about your market from actually selling to them. And business model generation has a whole thing on marketing in it in terms of your business model and understanding how to craft it. But a lot of times when it comes to marketing, for a small business or a startup, using a lot of the general concepts of marketing, it's just a matter of people's preference and their systems that they use. But usually all marketing can be summarized into what we call the POEM acronym. So you basically have paid, owned, and then you have earned media. And the typical standard in marketing now is a mix of these three: paid media, owned media, and earned media. Earned media would be social media. Owned is like your website or your packaging, and paid is like paying for an ad or a marketing classified, or, you know, upgrading a post on social media. But usually a mixture of those three is everyone kind of changes that direction based on what their preference is in marketing. But at the end of the day, those would be the two books I would recommend. But I feel like you'll get enough from Business Model Generation, E-Myth Revisited, and Startup, the Startup Manual by Steve Blank, that, I mean, marketing to me is case by case. How to market to one industry is very different than another industry, depending on what you're selling, what you're offering. But I think you'll have enough of the principles through those books on the left, and then the two Made to Stick by Chip Heath, and then a book called Ask. Yeah, I mean, those would be enough to really get you started. But in terms of management, Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited, handles that pretty well. That's essentially what his book deals a lot with, is the concept of management, building systems. How do you pilot things without ruining your brand? Okay, that's an interesting question. How do you pilot things or test them without ruining your brand? Well, I think the idea that testing something would ruin your brand would mean you've already established a brand from the very beginning. So if you're an established company like Apple, or an established company in your community, a restaurant, the way you would test something out without ruining your current brand is you would have early adopters. That's what we call them. People who would normally early adopt something new that you would put out. And you would bring them into almost like a focus group situation and say, hey guys, try this out. Let us know your feedback, et cetera, et cetera. So in Delta, because I've flown with them for the past, almost 20 years, they'll send me different things, say, hey, try this out, or let us know how this works. So sometimes before they started doing the face recognition scan to get on the plane, they would offer it to those of us who had been with Delta for a long time. So then you could go there, they have the machine, and they say, oh, Mr. Braxton, would you like to use this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I have facial recognition. They're like, yeah, no problem. Boom, scan my face, board the plane. Through those early adopters, but if you haven't built a brand, then testing your product isn't really going to ruin your brand because you haven't built one yet. And so piloting isn't going to hurt you as long as you're not an established company. It's when you're established that you have to worry about ruining your brand as a result, because you haven't reliably provided anything yet. You're just testing. You're running an experiment. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask as well, what is the best way to build a network or a community? And I have a second question. How did you connect with your mentors, and how you get to?
Okay. The best way to build a networking community is, first of all, get out and talk to other entrepreneurs. And sometimes for me, depending on your personality, I'm more introverted. So, I'm not really going to any social events. A lot of the big business conferences I've had to attend, are, 10, 40, 50,000 people. I'm avoiding all of those meetings, right? I just go there, pick up my food, and I'll watch the meetings online. I attend what I have to attend. So in those situations, a lot of times what I find to be helpful, if you're more of an introverted, shy person, to facilitate a conversation that allows you to get to know the person, right? So I may be like, hey, I know someone, who, is also in this type of business, or like the $1 Million Club. It allows me to connect people. And through that connection, I'm also building relationships in a very natural way. If you're not so shy, then I would just go out to other business owners and sit down and talk to them and say, hey, I'm actually working on a business, just wanted to sit down, grab some tea and whatever. And I just want to ask you some questions about how did you start your business? Like, what motivated you? What have been your challenges? And doing that type of experience, entrepreneurs are very, very willing to share their knowledge. They're very willing to open up themselves and to tell stories. And in a lot of ways, it makes them feel validated that everything they went through has now become valuable to you. And you start saying, hey, I've been through the exact same thing. So I think building your network is something that happens in a similar way to your business, right? It comes through service. So to me, by going to them and listening, but also saying, hey, how can I support your event next week? Or how can I support what you're doing in the community? Again, by helping them solve a problem, it automatically empowers you and gives you an opportunity. To your second question, in terms of how I found my mentors, when I was getting mentors, about 15, 16 years ago, they really more found me than I found them. Because back then, a lot of people, it was really based on who you knew and where you were. And so a lot of times with my mentors, I met them because of a common interest. And we were at a similar event or we were part of a similar program. And they really took, me under their wings to say, hey, this guy is really passionate. He's really sincere. I think he has a lot of potential. And by recognizing that in me, it helped me to see the possibilities. And so I think previously, that's how I found my mentors, was just common interest. But nowadays, I feel like that's a little more difficult. And that's why I want to create that platform, because I feel like that's a problem that is not being solved moving forward.
Thank you.
Great questions, though. I see Anya said, what would be the reasons to quit? Well, I think, Anya, to answer your question, one of the first reasons you would want to quit is nobody started a business because they want to work forever. And a lot of times, when you are solving a problem, right, and you create a business, let's say I'm trying to impact a cause, right, a ministry. There comes a time where you realize it's time for me to let someone else take this thing to the next level, whether it be because of the stage at life I'm in, or I just don't have the same energy that I used to. And so stepping aside from that particular organization, quitting is not always just like shutting down the organization. Sometimes it just means I'm stepping aside, right? It's time for me to let it go. On the other side, you may realize that similar to a lot of businesses that are in markets that they were not intended to reach, solving problems they were not intending to solve, that's how a lot of businesses end up when they're successful. They're dealing in areas and things that they were not initially created to do. And so you may get to a place where you built a successful business, but you may have other problems that you really are passionate about solving. And so you say, hey, it's time for me to let this thing go. But the idea of quitting is not always an issue of I'm just giving up. Sometimes it's just I want to move on to something else. And yeah, sometimes you want to do that after you have experienced some success. And other times you say, yeah, I know where this is going and I don't think I'll be able to survive that dip. And so I think I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Jose said, would you consider a YouTube channel as a business? A YouTube channel is definitely a business. I mean, it can be a business. It is a very intricate business. I mean, there's some people that have 10,000 subscribers and they make $30,000 a month. And there's people that have 1 million subscribers and they only make $1 a month. So revenue is based upon the advertisers and what they're willing to pay for your audience. So the type of people that you're bringing. So you can get a lot of subscribers and not necessarily have the most profitable YouTube channel. So it's really going to take a matching of what market are they really having a hard time reaching? And are you able to draw that market onto your channel? And so, and also you deal with engagement and stuff like that. So a YouTube channel is definitely a business if it's generating revenue, but anything that's not generating revenue is not a business. So you're doing a hobby, or it's just a personal thing you like to do, but it's not a business. A business, you have to have a revenue model. There has to be a way to make it self-supporting, to keep this thing going. And without that, you have to have a clear problem, clear revenue model, a clear market, and also a clear value proposition. You know, something that you're adding to these people who are grappling with this particular problem. But in a way, you know, it can also be even a nonprofit or a ministry, but it still has to generate some revenue in order to support itself by donations or whatever. So yeah, it can be if it's generating revenue, to answer your question plainly. Any other questions? Wow, not so many questions today.
You told us the other time that you're gonna share some things you are doing when it comes to the $1 Million Club as well. Yeah. This is the last part, so we don't want to lose.
Yes. So with the $1 Million Club, one thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to create this community where, again, like I said, it's connecting entrepreneurs, people are interested in projects or ministries, with people who've built multi-million-dollar for-profit businesses and also nonprofits. So I'll type in the website there so you can kind of get a little bit of a sense. But the ultimate concept here is creating this online mentorship, creating a community type mentorship is something that I'm really passionate about. So with the mentorship program, and you'll notice that on the website, you know, we have mentorship where I'm mentoring specific people in a lot of different areas, doctors, lawyers, people who are trying to start businesses, whatever, or ministries. But in terms of the $1 Million Club, that's also on the page. And that's basically, you know, $25 a month, participating in this club, getting these interviews, access to these people, being able to get training similar to what I'm doing here on the entrepreneurial mindset, but obviously a lot more drilled down, a lot more hands-on and practical. And then also being able to present to the community and to get, you know, meaningful feedback from what you're trying to do. So with the $1 Million Club, that's kind of the basic gist of the idea of, you know, Christian, you know, either millionaires or Christian leaders who have built multi-million-dollar nonprofit organizations. So the goal is, hey, $25 a month, you participate in this community. It's a way for you to create an immediate network. It's a way for you to get your ideas in front of other people, get their feedback. And it's also a way for you to listen to the lessons and the mistakes of people who have built successful organizations as well. One of the other things I'm working on in the new life is a app that is, we have a book called The Healthy Self. And basically in the next couple of weeks, the goal is to launch the ebook in the Kindle store and iBooks. And then we have a mobile app, very basic mobile app on Android and iOS that we're going to launch so people can actually go through the 10 weeks of health challenges. And basically it progresses them through the 10 habits of the longest living Americans, which we know are Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. So that's my way of kind of introducing it, but my focus is building communities. So in order to use the app, it's not an individual app, it's for a community. So you could do it for your church, you could do it for your business, your job, you could do it for your city, and I would just create a unique code. And then you'd be able to log in, do your onboarding, and then start your challenges. And it's there giving you different challenges to practice these habits every day in a nice progressive way. So the first week, it'll be like 5 minutes of exercise. Or it'll say just 2 8-ounce glasses of water. Well, people are like, oh, I can do that. And you complete it. And it has like a little leaderboard. and it's able to integrate with your Google Fit or your Apple Health so you can track your steps, your calories, and all that kind of stuff. And right now we're working on adding an accountability partner feature where you can partner up with someone in the group and basically keep each other accountable and see each other's statistics and where you are on the leaderboard and your habits so you can encourage each other throughout the experience. But hopefully that'll be in the App Store on the next couple weeks. But that is through my other business, the New Life Challenge, where we're launching the book and then the app moving forward. Someone asked me, do I do one-on-one business mentorship? Yes. Through the online mentorship program, I do business mentorship there. It's usually either between 1 session a month or 4 sessions a month, depending on how aggressive you want to be. I did that because consulting is a lot more expensive. Usually consulting is $150 to $250 per hour. And I feel like a lot of people don't need consulting, they need really mentorship. And if we get to the place where you're starting to see traction and your business is growing, then you need to go into consulting. But yeah, a lot of my consulting clients are clients that are paying me like, $2,000 to $3,000 a month for just about 10 hours or so of work for them. And we're helping them do things like get into a wholesale market or, redefining their market or understanding how to price their products. So a lot of that is very different than mentorship. But I think a lot of people, they really need more mentorship to say, how do I get started? How do I get traction? And that's where the mentorship program really comes in for me. So yeah, I do one-on-one business mentorship through that program, through Patreon.
I have a question. If we are being taught that it's good to have a selfless goal and putting that into a business instead of let's gain money and have success and whatnot. But the reality is that many people have that mentality. So how would you help that person to change perspective? How can a person that has that selfish way of thinking can turn the way around?
What I say in business is, a mind convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So to me, you have to want to change. You have to realize that there's something wrong. The concept of being a seeker, even in the Christian worldview, is you have to come across an experience in your life that your current worldview cannot explain. So if you're saying I'm motivated by money and I'm doing this thing, but you're not making money, you start becoming a seeker. You start questioning yourself. You start self-examining, like, what am I doing? Do I really want to do this? Because I'm not really making any money. And so at that point in time, it says, well, but look at all the good you're doing for your clients. Look at all the things that are happening. Do you want to just give that up? And that may cause them to shift. But at the end of the day, a person has to be willing and open to changing their mindset and motivation. And the truth is, most people are not even self-aware enough to know why they're doing what they're doing. And so it usually takes an event, failure, an honest person to tell you about yourself and tell you the truth. Like, hey, man, you're clearly just in this for the money. And sometimes it's a customer. Sometimes the customer will come in and say, listen, I thought you were doing this because you cared about people with diabetes, but clearly this is just about making money. And that's why most people don't trust hospitals and doctors. They don't trust the medical field in general because they feel like it's just for making money. You're not really trying to heal people, right? You're just trying to make money and support yourself. And so when people start perceiving that, they're going to lose trust and faith, and they're going to try to solve the problem in another way. Because nobody wants to be a tool. Nobody wants to be a source of money making from their problems into your pocket. And you're not even really helping them solve the problem. So it's like you're not even solving my problem and you're taking my money. So in that sense, changing that mindset is something that they have to be willing to do. They got to be open to that. But a lot of times it takes an event or a failure or, a customer, someone really telling you about yourself that brings you back to your senses. I see Alphonse says, I have questions about eating, veganism. Would you give me your mail or something other to talk about that later? Sure. I can put my email address in here. just give my New Life email. So yeah, I'm happy to do that. Any other questions?
One more question. With so many businesses and ventures that you currently have, do you have employees, and when did you decide to hire someone else except yourself?
Good question. Yes, I do have employees. And I used to have a lot more employees, but I let them go because of the mistake of hiring people to do a job that I myself had not done yet. And the reason for that is, and you'll read about this in the E-Myth, where he talks about how do you properly scale your business and build a system of how you do business. When you are doing something, for example, my media director in my mentorship program in my consulting company. So before I hired her, I made the videos myself. And after I made the videos, I learned how to use the software. We use an AI software in order to make the videos. And so this artificial intelligence software, I learned how to use it. I knew how to change the B-roll. I knew how to adjust the settings, how to get the logo, the bumper at the end, the style, portrait versus landscape, whether it was for Instagram or Facebook. So I did all of that myself. Once I knew how to do it, then I said, okay, I need someone else to do these tasks so I can refocus on just mentoring. So when I hired her, I taught her everything that I said, this is what we need. This is what we're going to do. These are the videos. She saw an example. We saw blah, 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 blah. She had a little bit of experience with media before that, video and all that stuff. So once I taught her how to use it, she was doing it the way I wanted it to be done. But if I hire her and I didn't do that, she'd be making it, and then I'd be like complaining about her work all the time. Well, no, I don't like that. Well, no, I think you should do this. And she's like, well, didn't you hire me to do this? So you're constantly giving me feedback like you don't. And that's because you haven't set a very clear rubric of what you want, but you're not going to know what you want until you do it yourself. So even with, let's say, my accountant, it would be the same. I understand my books. I actually keep my own cash flow projections. And I check them every 2 weeks on my business. So I can say, hey, I need to make a decision. I go to the cash flow projection. So we spend this expense. What's our cash flow? What's our revenue need to be? We're going to run out of money by February if we do that. And we don't make any more money. So how confident are you that you're going to have sales? So based on that, I'm not waiting on the accountant to send me a cash flow report or a profit and loss statement. I'm going to build it myself. So when the accountant, I say, this is what I need from you, you're going to be a lot more satisfied with what your employee provides because they're doing it the way you want it to be done. And we learned this as 50% of revenue is generated by franchises. And all the franchises is a systematic way of doing business. Uniform, architecture, the way the place is built, the colors, the burgers, what's on the menu, it's all the same. And therefore, you lower how skilled the person has to be to hire them. And that's how you build your job description. Well, you need to be able to fill in the blanks because I did it. So I already know what you need to be able to do. If you can't read, if you can't do this, this ain't going to work. So I know what you need to be able to do and what you don't need to be able to do. And then I look at the cultural fit. Once I see you have the requisite skills, based on the culture of our company, do you fit? And if you don't, then even if you have the skills, I'm probably not going to hire you. But that's when I would actually hire. But the underlying question to that is you need to have the money. And usually if you hire someone, your revenue should be at least 3 times what you're going to pay them. So if I want to pay you $1,000 a month, then I need to make sure I'm making at least $3,000 to $4,000 a month in revenue, because I have to pay for your actual income. I have to pay your taxes, and I have to pay my taxes. So, and if you add in benefits packages, then it gets even higher. So hiring a person is is not a cheap. I mean, the CEO of Chipotle gets paid $15,000 an hour. But that's because he's making the company $1 million an hour.
Mm.
So yeah, I'll pay you $15,000 to make me $1 million, but I'm not going to pay you $15,000 to make me 30. That's not going to work. So
yeah.
That's kind of how you have to approach it when it comes to hiring.
Mm. Perfect. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Absolutely. Great question. Anyone else?
Yes. You talk about firing one of your employees. How did you go about doing that?
You said hiring or firing?
Firing.
Oh, firing them?
Yeah.
Well, some of the employees I had, they were, some of them were on a contract, some of them were not. But basically, I looked at my cash flow and realized that in 4 months, I'm not going to be able to pay you. And I'm going to run out of money. And right now, your work is not generating any income or revenue in the business. So for me, I spoke to them individually first, and I let them know what was coming 30 days in advance, and then sent them a letter in writing. So if they wanted to get unemployment, they knew that they were being let go. It wasn't because of, misbehavior or conduct unbecoming. So it wasn't anything like that. So, they knew what was coming, they knew what was happening, and they knew why. But yeah, I talked to them personally, and then I put it in writing, sent them a letter. But yeah, you got to have a process of how you fire people as well, for sure. Any other questions?
You talked about systems a little bit. How important do you think they are for a business?
You said how to what?
How important they are for a business?
They're probably one of the top 5 most important things in your business.
Okay.
For sure.
Do you write them down? Because I know like some other companies, they had it in the past where they actually wrote down their system to be able
You always write down your systems, 100%. And a lot of times it's good to do visually using a mind mapping tool. There's one called Kaggle.it, made out of France. Theirs is like $5 a month, unlimited mind maps. I used to use that all the time. And $5 is nothing. In order to map out a customer experience, yeah, you need to define the system. What happens when this happens? They get an email. This is really about user experience design, designing the customer experience. And a lot of people don't give thought to that. But for sure, you want to put your systems down, because when you record it, that's how you can improve it. And it's also how you can pass it on faster. So any employee of mine, once I get them into a good rhythm, the very next task is you need to document everything you do.
Mm.
And in their mind, they're like, well, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that. But I'm like, guess what? I can't count on your health or your loyalty, that you're just going to stay here out of the goodwill of your heart. That's just not the case. So now everything that you're doing, no one knows how to do. So I'm not doing that.
Cool.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes. So, all right. Last question. Okay. Well, you guys have my email address. You have the website. Again, would love to hear from you guys. Thanks for joining. And I really appreciate you guys making the time. I am, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I could sit and talk about this all day. It's a passion of mine. In fact, I do talk about it all day, every day. So it's very, very natural. But again, I hope to hear from you if you're really interested. Would love to partner with you guys, support whatever, consider the $1 Million Club if that's a fit. And ultimately, I would want to also be interested in any projects that you have, because again, having that network, being able to connect, and you just never know how collaboration can lead to innovative approaches to business as well. And I think we as Adventists, because we have a global network, we really should have a global business network, and resources and ways that we can connect to each other to get different services or things that are available, and be aware of that. So I think that would be a really cool thing to create. So anyway, I'm glad that this thing was helpful. Let's go ahead and pray and close it out, and you guys can get back to your evening. Father in heaven, thank you for the opportunity to speak today about this Christian entrepreneurial mindset. Lord, there's so much that we could glean and continue to dig in and inquire about. But Lord, as we watched Cain in his arcade, it just takes us back to that simplicity of curiosity, that simplicity of being persevering, of having that passionate and compelling goal that moves us to fall in love with the problems and not so much the solutions. Lord, I don't know whatever projects everyone has here, but what I do know is that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And what I do know, Lord, is that with your help and grace, if we are humble and teachable, that you can help us realize some of the most amazing dreams that we've ever dreamt before. And we claim your promise today that we can come to him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all we could ever ask or think. Lord, that gets us excited, helps us to be motivated to do something great for the kingdom of God. And so, Lord, we ask in a special way that your spirit would stay close to us throughout this evening, keep us close to your heart as well. And may you continue to bless this conference until Sunday and its final meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, you guys have a great night and look forward to being in touch. So God willing.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You guys have a great one.